do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello everybody, James Rink here. It is December 21st, 2017, and today I have Adrian Espinoza with me. And we're going to just do something, I guess you could call it fun stuff today. We're gonna explore channeling John F. Kennedy, or at least I'm not going to be channeling. Adrian will be. And so I've got my list of questions, and but before we begin, let me go ahead and give a little introduction about Adrian. Now, Adrian is a clairvoyant psychic, medium channeler who has been doing this for many years. He's been coming on my show many times, and he's a good friend of mine. But in particular, Adrian uses a process that involves, I believe, what your angel board, where you open up a portal.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate a little bit more about how you actually obtain this information?
Well, basically, I use a computer software that I use to read. First, I'll just talk a little bit about my software. I use to read people's records, akashic records, codes from the Matrix that I got from Sedona. And I use that software as well to help people that have had MyLab abductions, people that want to know more about their alien implants, people that have had abductions or any kind of memory. I just wanted to mention that first. So I obtained that software, which is a really cool software. I also use a biofeedback software called the SRC4U software. And on my software, I'm going to also be getting more of an upgrade software, which is going to start helping people financially, different types of legal issues, different types of different things. People that are, they like to gamble. They go out and gamble, and it'll increase their chances of winning in gambling. Whether you want to play the lottery or something, I can also run it for that as well. So it's an energy that I use to help people on an energetic level. So basically, I'm also, like James was saying, I'm also a clairvoyant and psychic. I do see the spirit world. I do see spirits on the other side. I do communicate with them. I see them on a weekly basis. Sometimes I'll even go with I'm from Utah. I go with the Utah Ghost Hunters, and sometimes I'll take my board with me, which I also got from James a long time ago, which is an angel board. And I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about what that was like, so I started learning a little bit more how the board works. And now I'm actually starting to channel for people that have passed on, or people that we want to connect with, just like we have with Michael Jackson on the videos in the past. People have looked at my website at forceversuspower.com. And it's very interesting because we've come up with a lot of clues, a lot of ideas, and so I decided that we wanted to do a little bit of a documentary on John F. Kennedy, since we've been working a little bit with Michael Jackson. And so anybody that would like to me to contact your loved ones, feel free to check out my website, and it's forceversuspower.com. Or if you would like to know a little bit about my software, I'm even willing to work out a deal with that as well for upcoming Christmas deals. And we've been kind of advertising a little bit of James Rink's NeoCubes, and James actually gave me a NeoCube, and I really love it. And I could say that it's changed my life tremendously. Things that I'm able to manifest on a quicker, faster way, how to manifest something. If I want extra money, or if I want to go out and gamble, I'll use the NeoCube along with my software and along with the radionics. That's another thing my software also has. It has radionics on it. It's an AI software, or you could just use a regular radionics machine, but a lot of people do like the software, and they've seen a lot of changes in their lives. So I've been pretty happy with it, and I'm hoping to get it up by Friday. This Friday, I had to get a new computer and get everything new going, so I'm hoping that everybody will like their sessions and they'll like the show. So I just wanted to share that with you, James.
Great. And of course, Adrian's website is actually forcevspower.com, not versus, but there will be a link available in the description section of this video. Also, be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already, because we're going to do a couple more of these updates. And also, we're probably going to try to see if we can bring Michael Jackson back. Not right now, unless you really want to, but and we've got some others in the lines that we want to bring out. But let's go ahead and begin. So, Adrian, why don't you go ahead and make your contact with Mr. President? I'm assuming that's how he wants to be addressed, or JFK,
Okay.
considering that there were many Mr. Presidents out there.
Okay. Let's go ahead and make contact with JFK. Let's see if he's coming through. I do have my board with me right now, and we'll just go ahead and see if he's coming through. So he is saying he is present with us. Hello, and hello. I just wanted to mention to JFK that James Rink is here. Also with Adrian, we are live on YouTube, and we would like to make contact to ask some questions. Are you wanting to do this with us, this interview? He's saying yes, we do have permission, and he has come through the bell. So we're going to go ahead and make contact. Did you have a question for JFK? He's here.
Yeah, I've got a lot of questions. I don't know if we'll be able to go through them all today, but we'll try, because I know this is very taxing on you, Adrian. But so the first question is, the Revenue Act of 1964, which you originally campaigned for and supported, JFK, was passed after your death. It cut the tax rate from 91% to 65%. Today, the top tax rate is 39%. Do you think this is a positive or negative thing for the country?
He is saying yes, it is a positive thing. But he wishes that he could have done better, he's saying. He wishes that he could have came up with some kind of strategy that could have been a little bit more beneficial for the economy. But he's saying at the time when he was running, there was a lot going on, and he really couldn't sit down to figure out everything that he wanted to figure out. So it was like the way he did business was like almost like in and out. Like he basically had to just come up with something on the top of his head, and he wasn't thinking clearly. But he feels like he could have done better in that area. That's what he wanted to say.
What would you like the top tax rate to be if you could implement a policy? Because the tax code is a policy. It's actually not a law. Income tax is not a law. It's in the Code of Federal Regulations.
He says he doesn't know. Not off the top of his head.
Okay, so we'll let the economists decide that one. All right, maybe a 0%. Okay, so let's go on here. Number 2, you were the first president to have a poet read at the inaugural address. It was Robert Frost, who is considered one of the greatest poets in American history. The tradition has been carried on by recent presidents. If you were to be inaugurated, I guess in 2020, which living poet might you choose to read?
something to do. Something to do with like a Robert. He's like bringing up a Robert name. I don't know who Robert is.
Yeah, well, can you be any more descriptive? That doesn't help me out. I'm sure there's probably 3 million Roberts in the United States. Maybe 1 million.
Be more descriptive. Robert Kestive, something like that. I don't know.
Anything else you want to elaborate about that answer?
He says he would have been a great one for that.
Why?
He says he has a lot of history. A lot of history. Just keep bringing that up.
Okay.
He said there was a lot of people he worked with that he didn't talk about. That he didn't want to share with certain people because of the events that was going on in his lifetime.
Right.
Personal people.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Your favorite poem was "Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening." One of the line of the poem reads, "But I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep." JFK, if you had lived, what promises would you have kept, and what would have been your top priorities if you had won a second term as president, as you probably would have?
He said, well, first I would start with the economy as far as having to do with our money system change in the Federal Reserve. He said I would have made big changes and I would have went to a different type of money system. He also says he would cut taxes at a very low percent. I would have helped more of the poor than the wealthy, which was I was planning to do with the Federal Reserve, the money system. He said I would have exposed a lot of things that went on, that have been going on for centuries, that people don't really know about. I would have got rid of the media, and I would have created my own secret service. And I would allow others to explore things in the government that they have not explored. And I would have gotten rid of a lot of federal agencies. Let's see what else is coming through here. He says, there's not much I could say other than the things that I would like to change that I couldn't change. And that was one of the biggest things I wanted to change, was the money system with the Federal Reserve.
All right, now I wanted to ask you a question here, Kennedy. You mentioned you wanted to help end poverty, and then you mentioned that you wanted to reduce the tax rate. Now, Lyndon B. Johnson, I believe he actually raised the tax rate in his so-called war on poverty, which turns out to be a disaster to create a welfare state. At least that's what the evidence has shown. What is your response to that? How would you have been able? First of all, how would you have been able to have your so-called, if you're going to call it a war on poverty, if you were going to reduce the tax rate? And what do you think about LBJ's war on poverty?
Okay.
And what would you have done differently?
He says, well, lowering the tax rate would mean that I would create small businesses, because I feel like that small businesses would help to do that. Change the Federal Reserve and change the whole money system altogether. And I feel that we keep repeating history and that we are not spinning our wheels where we're supposed to be or go. So in order to change something, you have to change the whole system in itself, which would have been really bad. But at first I would have lowered the taxes by creating small businesses, and I would have helped the poor by donations. But at the same time, there's really no set way on how to lower taxes. All you have to do is try to lower them and try to get into the changes of changing the Federal Reserve in the money system altogether. But you have to do it very slowly because others will be in shock. They won't know and understand the changes that are about to come into the future. And I hope that Mr. Trump will make these changes for everyone, and it will benefit everyone and not just himself. But from what I see is that we are headed in a very bad situation with war because of the oil and the taxes and everything that is going up. We've gone so far up that we can't see past the idea of what needs to change in the Federal Reserve. Everything has already come to an end, and it must come to an end in order to make the changes. I'm sorry, my fellow Americans, but this is a message that I want to give, to say that things will change, but they will change drastically for the future for us to come. We must prepare ourselves for these changes. And the changes may not be what you expect, but hopefully it will be the better good for humanity and mankind. That is my message to the world.
Mr. President, what would you have favored Johnson's war on poverty, the way he went about that?
He had a good strategy plan, but I would not favor in the idea of what he's trying to do, for the fact that we are just going back to the drawing board. We are not getting nothing accomplished that we need to get accomplished with the Federal Reserve. I guess that maybe I might have rushed into it too fast and it costed me my life, but somebody had to do the job and somebody had to expose what is going on. And I hope for the fact that Mr. Trump won't make the same mistakes that I did, but I hope that he makes the right decisions on cutting taxes, lowering the money system, and changing the Federal Reserve, which is good because he's starting to do that already, but he's going about it too slow, and we do not have much time. For the future that is to come, we must prepare ourselves, because there will be a war, and there has always been war. That is something that we can't avoid, because the more war we have, the more money they make, the globalists, and we must all pull together as a mass consciousness to defeat whatever is about to come. My fellow Americans, I hope that we can all come together in an agreement, and that I want to say that my death was not in vain.
Excellent, and we certainly will talk a little bit more about the Federal Reserve in a moment. But I want to go and talk about one of your biggest mistakes, so at least according to historians, you may not have considered that, but one of your biggest mistakes as president was the Bay of Pigs invasion. Its failure helped legitimize the Cuban regime of Fidel Castro. In 2015, the United States has diplomatically recognized the island country of Cuba. What do you think of that decision in light of the last 60 years?
The last 60 years, I would say that things have changed for the better, but I hoped for a better outlook on what was going on in that timeline. There's not much I can do or say that would change anything, but if it was me who would make the changes, you would start to see that things would be a lot more better. I would create a better strategy. I've always done. I've always made trades and deals in changes and things that I want to change for the better. But I can't really give you a really good strategy on how that would look. It would take so much time and energy, because when I plan things, I plan it in ways, strategy ways that have to do with trade deals and things that I could have done better with other countries and decisions, like big decisions. And there's not much I can say or do now, but I hope for the better. And I know that we could have made better decisions. Just like when I think back the time when I was president, I think of the things that I could have done better for the whole for the whole world. And sometimes those decisions can be very difficult. And Donald Trump was right when he said that those decisions can cause calamity, or it could help other people in such a way that it might affect them in a different way. But I would create a better strategy, and I always have and always will. I think very, very hard on my decisions as president, because one wrong decision can affect everybody. So there's really no great plan or strategy in a lot of hard decisions or big decisions.
Well, so you think that you still didn't really answer the question. Do you think it's a good thing that we finally recognized Cuba and allowed trade in 2015, the United States?
He says yes.
Okay. All right, so there you have it. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Now, the tabloids really want to know, did you really have an affair with Marilyn Monroe, as reported by several sources? And if it's true, do you think her death had anything to do with you?
He said no, not true.
Or we'll just have to take your word for that. So I guess her death had nothing to do with you?
He says no.
Okay. Can you comment about why she was killed? Do you have any information on that?
Said she knew top secret information.
And who told her that top secret information?
The mafia.
What about you? Did you share information with her?
Yes.
All right. Do you want to elaborate anything else about that before we move on?
Things that I told her was about my situation and the things that of my plans that got out into the public and should have not have. Things that I owed money to the mafia, trade deals that I did with different countries that didn't get paid, and things that should have been paid, and decisions that I made that wasn't always the right decision, and it wasn't always the best, but I felt like it was the best decision I could make at the time.
Fair enough. All right. And were you aware of extraterrestrial star people during your presidency?
Yes, I was.
Were you aware of the meeting with Eisenhower at Holloman Air Force Base in 1954 with the tall grays from Betelgeuse?
Yes.
Okay. And were you aware of? Did you actually have any secret meetings with aliens, like Eisenhower?
Yes, I did.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
They gave us a lot of information of their technologies and their ships and their bases. They also helped us to show us different cures for different diseases, which the FDA would not approve. And they showed us a lot of their different planets, time travel equipment, and bioweaponry. I don't know what bioweaponry is. Something to do with their weapons for war.
Probably a bomb that could target certain genetic code.
Mm-hmm. Different things like that.
All right. And did any of these extraterrestrials make deals to try to help humanity?
He says yes.
Did you accept their offer?
Yes, I did.
All right. Did you ever have any meetings in person with these beings?
Yes. Many times.
All right. Did you happen to meet with Valiant Thor?
Yes.
Okay. And what did Valiant Thor discuss, or what did you discuss with him?
How to create a better system for everybody. A better world.
Okay.
Technologies.
Right. Is Valiant Thor still working with the administration or the Pentagon?
Yes.
Okay, because you don't really hear anything else about that. It just makes you wonder. And of course, Valiant Thor claimed to be from planet Venus in another, I guess, space-time dimension.
He said yes, that's correct.
All right. And did you ever visit Area 51?
Many times, yeah.
And what goes on there? Or really, I should ask, what went on there at the time of your presidency?
He said, I don't know because they wouldn't let me see.
And how do you feel about that, being the President of the United States? Thus, the supposed highest elected leader in our country.
I was not happy, but they say it was for my own protection.
Did you believe them?
No.
Right. Now, I do want to mention to the audience members a little bit about the political situation at the time, the reason why the Eisenhower administration, which initially set up the secrecy grid, did that. they were concerned that the Russian spies would get a hold of this very advanced technology, so that's why they created layers of secrecy so that even the highest level, the president, would not be able to get access. But again, it also created a runaway state where we have this problem today. So, moving on here, and we can. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that, but let's just go ahead and move on. Another question we have is: were you part of Project Monarch?
Yes, I was.
And what does that entail? At least for you particularly.
He says, well, I've seen the corruption, and I've seen the mind control. And I've seen how some of these races just think that they can come over and take on our planet, and the things that we've given up to them for the exchange of our technologies, possibly even at Area 51. But we have to have a main base that takes a lot of their technologies or information. And I did it because I felt it could help humanity. And that we're in a world of discovery. And the interesting part is we've discovered that we are not our own species and that we are not the only ones that are on this earth. And we were hoping that we could interact with some of these species to help us, but unfortunately some of them had their own agenda, like the reptilians and the Dracos. So we made a deal with the reptilians and Dracos that if we continue to feed them and they stay underground, then we will be able to make trade deals in the exchange of experimenting with humans having to do with Project Monarch. Project Monarch was right between the time of the Philadelphia experiments and the things that we've done and seen fail the experiments. So we couldn't use time and space. We couldn't work with the Bermuda Triangle because everything we realized was interdimensional between time and space, and our scientists are still discovering today on how that all works.
Right. So I guess going back to my initial question, and thank you. That was very interesting what you just said. But what specifically was your involvement with Project Monarch? Is that where they would try to? I mean, I could ask a leading question if you don't mind. Is that like mind control, or could you be a little bit more descriptive?
Yes, it is my mind control. Yes, we're trying to figure out how the brain works. We all have what they call a reptilian brain, and we're doing a little bit experimenting on how the brain works and how humans interact with the aliens and how we're much different or how much we are less than the reptilians or different types of hybrids and alien races. And we hope that we can all compare that we are all the same. But unfortunately, some of these races didn't want to work with us, so we had to separate, because they had to separate with these different races on different planets. So we created multiple bases, and we're trying to figure out how are we going to interact with them in such a way that they do not come up from under the ground. So we continue to feed them cattle because it's the only way of their survival.
Is that where the cattle mutilations come into play?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm assuming that, but why didn't you ask for certain benevolent extraterrestrial races such as Valley and Thor to intervene, so you wouldn't have to make deals with the Draco? Maybe they could have done it for you.
I could have, he says, but at the time I felt like I wanted to show the world something of my own decisions based on my own plans. I had my own plans at the time, and I wanted to do something special myself, in which I did with the Federal Reserve, I did with the money system, I did with everything else. And I had a perfect plan, but unfortunately, some of these races didn't want to work with me, and not even the good ones. So I'm hoping that the new thing that is coming, that we'll be able to all work with each other. Some reptilians are actually very friendly. I've met with several.
Right. Okay, so I'm assuming you're saying that if the Federal Reserve was shut down, then your treaty with the Draco wouldn't really matter anymore. Because for what
Yeah.
reason? Oh, why? Just because maybe some other races would come in afterward? You're
Yeah.
hoping. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Were you aware of time? You kind of already answered this or hinted at it. Are you aware of time travel and mind control experiment at Montauk Point, New York, during your presidency?
Yes.
And what did you think of that? What they were doing?
I was not happy, and I wanted these operations to be shut down.
Was that tied into the reptilian and Draco that you made agreements with?
Yes. But that's
Okay.
why I couldn't.
And when did all that begin? Was that right around your presidency, or was that during Eisenhower, or even before then?
Eisenhower.
Okay, so you were almost like there was already an agenda put in place, and you were just just continuing on with the status quo until you could figure out something better.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So were you aware of Nazi off-world bases on the Moon and Mars at that time, and the secret space program?
No, I was not.
Are you aware of it today?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I did a good job keeping that hidden. Generally speaking, I believe it was in 1954 where a bunch of UFOs buzzed the capital of DC, and those UFOs were apparently Nazis putting pressure on the Eisenhower administration to make deals. The Nazis were going to come out to the public and announce that we won World War II. We're actually on the Moon and Mars and Antarctica, and we're technologically more superior. So instead of the Eisenhower administration wanted to make that secret, keep that secret, so that they could get technology from the Nazis, and so they embedded their own program.
Correct.
But I guess that they kept it all secret, even from you. All
That's
right.
correct. Yes.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on here to the assassination of JFK, because there's a lot of questions that I like to know. But let's go ahead and begin with: is Lee Oswald a patsy?
Yes.
Can you tell us the name of the person who killed you and why?
Says his name was Baron. He killed me because there was money that I owed. Which trade deals that I made that I didn't tell anybody. My own personal secret weapons. Changed the world. And again, sometimes my decisions are not always the best, but I did it for the whole. And I did it for our fellow people, so that things could change for everybody financially. But unfortunately, I jumped too soon, and I found myself in a debt situation that I couldn't get myself out of. So I felt like it was better to die a broken piece of jade than to live a life of clay.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. So we're going to explore a little bit more about that and more specifically in a moment. But I wanted to go back to Oswald. A House committee concluded that Oswald had meetings at the consulates of both Cuba and the Soviet Union during a 6-day trip to Mexico City about 8 weeks before your assassination. Officials believe Oswald was attempting to obtain Soviet citizenship along with a visa to Cuba. His attempts were unsuccessful. However, documents revealed in 1999 show that Oswald returned to the U.S. with someone impersonating him and made calls to the Soviet embassy and Cuban consulate, adding a layer of mystery to this crucial period of the timeline. John Tunham, a federal judge who was chairman of the Assassination Records Review Board, said documents relating to Oswald's Mexico trip weren't released because they could be damaging to the U.S. standing with Mexico. So my question is, what was Oswald doing during this 6-day trip to Mexico City before your assassination? And can you confirm if somebody was impersonating him when he returned back to the U.S.?
He said yes. He said this is true. He said, but although I don't know all the details, but I could tell you at the time they were doing a lot of cloning of me. And I don't know what really went on at that time, but I could tell you there was a lot going on that I knew about in the Secret Space Project, which was part of this situation that you're talking about. But I can't trace back memory because after the shooting, it wiped out my memory and I got hit in the back of the head. So I'm trying to remember a lot of the things that went on at the time, and it created me brain damage.
All right, but now you just said that you were not aware of the secret space program during your presidency. So is that something that you're just making an assumption after the fact?
I was aware of some things, but not everything.
Yeah. Okay. Probably not the Nazi stuff.
Yeah.
But so but you just said they were cloning you, and I asked you what was going on with Oswald. So what does that have to do with you? If Oswald was there.
Well, he says, I think it had something to do with my clone. I don't know how Oswald was part of it, but all I remember was when I was being strapped to a chair, Oswald was next to me. And I remember looking at him in the Secret Space Project. I remember bits and pieces of it, but I don't remember everything, he says. Especially the Nazi part where there was Nazis on the moon and all this new Dark Fleet stuff that's coming out. However, I did know a lot about the reptilians, and at the time when I did know the reptilians, they were a very friendly race to me. They said I was the best president that they've ever seen or met with.
All right, so I got a few more questions here because this is contradicting a few things that at least according to some of the research that I've come up with. Now, according to Dr. Peter Beater, who was head of the Import-Export Bank around the time of the late 70s, he stated that the Soviets got a hold of cloning technology in 1979, or it might have been 78. So now you're suggesting that this would, of course, been around that was 64 or 63. So are you suggesting that they had cloning even way before then?
Yes.
Right. So probably the extraterrestrials must have given it to the government because I don't think we would have been smart enough to figure that out. It would have been 63. So
It would have.
yeah. Okay. All right. So as far as somebody impersonating Oswald, all you can say that probably that was a clone.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. So let's go ahead and move on here. According to, actually, yeah, you know what? Before we move on, I wanted to ask this question before I forget. Why? Why would they clone you if they're going to kill you?
It was something that I did, and I made an agreement with the good terrestrial. But I can't say why, because the killer that killed me had made agreements with the bad, and now we are in a war, and this agreement had to do with the Federation, which I cannot speak about at the moment.
So it almost seems like, of course, you just said you can't speak about it, but I'm going to assume that they made the Federation made a clone of you. So I guess the whole point is to bring you back someday.
That's correct, yeah.
And what can you comment when we'll be seeing JFK again?
He said in 6 years from now.
Okay, well, the public's going to be quite shocked about that one, but in order for that to happen, there'll probably be a lot of things that are going to be shocking, even more shocking than that, probably. But let's go ahead and move on here. Okay, so the next one, this is kind of another long question, so let me go ahead and just read this as slowly as I can. According to the JFK assassination tapes interview with Marina Pruslakova, who is the wife of Lee Harvey Oswald, she claims that she was set up and manipulated and lied to by the Warren Commission and the FBI. She believes her husband Lee was innocent and was used as a patsy. Oswald was definitely working for the ONI, the Office of Naval Intelligence, and the CIA, and was paid by former FBI Chicago chief Guy Bannister. Lee was probably trying to infiltrate the CIA's ZR rifle operation, which is the political assassination unit. Now I don't know if this says domestically, because the CIA is not supposed to operate assassination units domestically in the U.S., on behalf of Bobby Kennedy, as U.S. Attorney General to find a CIA mob connection. Can you confirm if Oswald was working for the CIA to infiltrate assassination units on behalf of Bobby Kennedy?
He says no.
Okay. All right. Short answer, long question. Fair enough. Okay, so could you elaborate any more on that?
He said there was a lot of operations that they kept me out of, and to be honest with you, to be truthful, there was a lot of things that was going on that I didn't know what was going on, and that was one of the things that kind of upset me, keeping me in the dark, in the loophole. But this is the reason why I had to pull away and take matters in my own hands. And I'm hoping that Trump will do the same thing and make the right decisions. Because it is not something that people think that it is something very easy, because it's not. It's very, very tough.
Okay. So let's go on and move on to the next question here. Did the CIA, FBI, and Chicago Mafia collaborate to set up the hit on Kennedy with the hitman? Well, I guess you already answered that question. That was yes. But the hitman coming from the French-Italian Mafia in Marseille, France.
Yes, that's what I was talking about, yes.
All right. So let's go ahead. I'm going to throw the name out of here. Sicilian-American mobster Sam Guancana. Hopefully I said that. Do you know who that is? Sam Giancana?
Yeah.
Giancana. Just to make sure I say it right. Okay. Was killed shortly before he was scheduled to appear before the church committee investigating CIA and Cosa Nostra collusion and plots to assassinate JFK. What can you tell the listeners about his role in your assassination?
Says he had something to do with his money or something, like the deals.
Okay. All right. Anything
Like money
else?
deals. Oh, interesting. He says he was my runner.
Can you explain what that means?
Okay, so basically what he's talking about is that he was one of his messengers.
Oh,
As a runner.
so one of your little birdies turned on you.
Yes.
Oh, I guess because you didn't pay him.
Yes. Because he lost money on other deals. And he was in between like deals, and I guess like he couldn't keep his obligations to those things.
And the thing is, if they would have just been a little bit patient with you and allow him to get the Federal Reserve Act and all that going, you would have probably they would have not only been able to get paid back, but their family and their dynasty and their children would have lived in a much better place.
Yes.
All right, so now here's another question. Did your wife have mafia ties? And was she involved for your assassination?
Yes.
Right, because I wanted to mention this because there are some people believe there are Mandela effects where they remember Jackie Kennedy shooting Kennedy. Now I don't think that actually happened in this reality, but can you confirm that that may have happened in another reality?
He says yes, it did.
So I'm assuming that you two probably weren't all that close.
No.
Well, and are you sure you didn't have an affair with Marilyn?
He
Okay, well, you.
said no, he didn't.
All right. All right. So let's go ahead. Was there anything else you want to elaborate about Jackie Kennedy and the mafia ties?
Well, he says she fell in love with my killer.
Oh, I see. So we got a little love triangle going on here.
Love triangle, yeah.
That's not good. So she probably was if anything, she was probably being the one that was promiscuous and cheating on you.
She wanted more money. Yes.
From you?
From my killer.
Oh, so she aggravated the whole situation by her greed.
Yes.
Oh. All right. So let's go on to the next question. Some researchers believe that President Lyndon B. Johnson gained the most from the assassination as he controlled the investigation into Kennedy's death. Strangely enough, a fingerprint of Johnson's aide, a man by the name of Mac Wallace, was found on a box on the 6th floor where officially the shots were fired at Kennedy. Since Wallace did not work in the Texas School Book Depository, how did his prints get there?
Somebody put him there. It wasn't
Okay.
him. Somebody framed him.
So somebody was trying to frame Lyndon B. Johnson,
Yeah.
or at least try to make him look bad.
Yes.
And but are you suggesting that Lyndon B. Johnson had nothing to do with your assassination?
No.
Oh.
She did, but it had
No,
some.
no, Lyndon B. Johnson, the former president, vice
Oh,
president.
okay. I thought you were talking about somebody else.
So this Mac Wallace was his aide. His
Oh, okay.
fingerprints were found at the depository.
Yes. He's saying this person didn't have nothing to do with it.
So LBJ is innocent.
Yes.
All right. Now let's move on here to the next question. According to Bill Cooper, while in the Navy, he had access to ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence files that said that the Secret Service agent driving JFK's limo, William Greer, could be seen in the unedited Zapruder film placing a light-colored, which is a silvery or very light gray, 45 caliber looking automatic on his right shoulder, turning his head around and shooting JFK in the right forehead area. So this was the driver, and he put a gun here on his right shoulder, turned around real fast, and shot him. And then, which blew a huge gaping hole in the right rear of Kennedy's head. Can you confirm if the publicly released Zapruder footage was edited to conceal the shots fired by the limo driver?
He said, yeah.
Can you confirm that William Greer at least fired one shot into you?
Yeah.
All right. And I'm assuming that were there other shots as well?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So next question is, were you shot from behind as the official narrative suggests, or were you shot? You already answered that question. Never mind. Sorry. Next question. Why did Jackie keep her silence about the killer? And I think you've already answered that, but maybe you want to elaborate.
Why was she silent about the killer?
Yeah. I guess more like my question would be is, so she knew who killed you because she was involved. So I guess she kept her silence because see, usually what happens is they would try to come after her, Jackie.
Yeah.
So did she keep silent because she was worried that they would come after her?
That's correct. Yeah.
Because I guess she really didn't. It just seems like she didn't do very much to try to get the Zapruder film and all that released. Because probably she was partly involved, indirectly.
She was afraid of being assassinated.
Now there are my next question is: was George Herbert Walker Bush at the book depository the day of the shooting, and was he involved in your assassination?
Yeah.
And what was his role in your assassination? Daddy Bush, Poppy Bush.
He says he doesn't know.
Okay. And there are photos of Bush Sr. Coming out of the book depository. Okay, so the next question is, was the main reason you were murdered because you were becoming aware of underground bases funded by CIA drug trafficking money, and you had plans of ripping apart the CIA in a million pieces and exposing these facilities?
Yes, he's saying a lot of these things that you're asking about, I do believe that they were cloned.
Cloned?
Yes.
I don't understand. Well, what does that have to do with ripping apart the CIA in a million pieces?
I'm speaking of Daddy Bush.
Oh.
In other words, they have a clone. I guess that's what he's saying.
So they made a clone of Bush Sr., and that's the one that was involved in your assassination?
Yes.
All right. Um, but going back to my other question, well, maybe I should ask: were you aware that CIA drug trafficking money was being funneled to build underground bases, DUMBs, all across the United States and the world?
No, he was not.
Okay, because all right,
There's a lot
but
of
you
things
did.
they didn't tell him.
Yeah, but you were planning on ripping apart the CIA, correct?
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, on why?
I wanted to create a better system with law enforcement and government. And
Okay.
I feel that if I would have created a better system, people would know their constitutional rights and amendments, so others would have their freedom. Like, almost like the people from Mexico or people from other countries to get their citizenship. I feel that I would have changed that as well. I think that we've gone too far in the control. We need to allow others to feel that we are a free country and not a controlled slave system. That was not my plan. I wanted to make a better way.
Okay. Well said. Thank you, Mr. President. Um, Going on to the next question. Records show CBS TV reporter Dan Rather is one of the few people that have seen the unedited Zapruder film footage. Was he allowed to rise in the ranks because he kept his silence about the assassination?
Yes.
Right. Okay, so there you have it. And the next question is, how do you respond to the Mandela effect claim that claims some people remember 4 people in the car and not 6 on the day of your assassination?
Please say that again, he says.
Apparently there's a Mandela effect which shows that there were 4 people in the car on the day of your assassination, not 6. So I guess another parallel reality.
He says correct, yes.
What's going on there? Do you have any information on that?
He said this was part of the experiments with Project Monarch. I don't know too much about it, but I do know that in other parallel realities, things keep repeating themselves to keep me stuck in a loophole, which I'm trying to break now in my lifetime, and so that I could press forward to come back in 6 years, I will be recycled.
Right. Oh, okay. So I'm assuming you're talking about how you want to come back in 6 with your clone body or your original.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and read the next question. This one's kind of longish, but it's very important because the reason I'm going to read so much is to educate the audience members, because a lot of people are not even aware of this. So this was, I think this was literally like 4 days before your assassination, and it refers to Executive Order 11110. But that was actually in July, so your assassination was in November. But when you met with Indonesian President Sukarno, around 1961, Keynes predicted the world monetary crisis was about to become reality, which you were talking about earlier, the monetary system. This problem was brought about by the lack of sufficient money currency, especially US dollars, in the world circulation to support the rapidly expanding international commerce. And that's the reason why it was creating so much poverty, because there wasn't enough money. The world needed US dollars beyond the capacity of the good faith, because the US dollar is a reserve currency, which that's why it's pegged on international trade, beyond the capacity of the good faith and credit of the United States taxpayer in order to facilitate trade. It was not possible to break the Bretton Woods Treaty due to the possible damage of the stable core of the world's economy, as this had the potential of leading to another major world war. To compound the problem, the majority of dollars in circulation were in private banks, multinational corporations, private businesses, and individual bank accounts. In 1963, the gold that had been entrusted to the care of President Soekarno was recalled by the nations to underpin, I think it might be United Nations or Oil Nations, okay, to underpin the issuance of further US dollars in order to facilitate international trade. Under this agreement, as an international trustee holder of the gold, began the process of repositioning international gold that had been earlier entrusted to the care of the Indonesian people, back into the banking system to create a fractional reserve banking for the US dollar. The potential of this agreement led to Executive Order 11110, issued July of 63, which would have provided the Department of Treasury the power to issue United States dollars and not the Baron Rothschild-controlled Federal Reserve System. Within 2 weeks after signing the Green Hilton Agreement, which would have enabled the consolidation of EO 11110, however, you were assassinated. And a few days after this signing of the with your death, the authority granted to the Treasury was never taken up. So my question to you, Kennedy, is what can you tell us would have been the result had this executive order been followed out, allowing the U.S. Treasury to issue, I guess it was silverback dollars, the $2, I think it was $5 notes, or was it 10? Because you were already issuing silver notes. So what was your goal? What do you think would have happened if you continued issuing bullion-backed currency?
He said that would be the end of the game, money game. He said, but as far as we know, he says that would be very, very tough to show, but that was my goal at the time. But I wanted to do it in a way that not too much information would get out. So that was my, I guess you could say, grand finale. And I feel that was a very wonderful plan, and it would have changed everything, he said.
Right. And of course, executive orders are just policy. They're not exactly law, so that's why no one's really forced the U.S. Treasury to enforce that EO. But maybe Trump can do something, some other policy. But let's move on here. Okay, so this is another long question, but I need to read a little background because on October 26 of 2017, the National Archives released over 3,000 never-before seen CIA and FBI files on the 1963 JFK assassination. These documents include more than 3,000 records that have never been seen by the public and 30,000 records that have been previously seen but with redactions. So I guess the unredacted versions. These records were originally sealed under the President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection Act of 1992, which required all the documents to be released in 25 years. So of these 30,000 documents, how many were destroyed before the 1992 law became in effect? And what can you tell us was in those documents? So my question is, we know there's 30,000 documents, but how many more of those documents were destroyed that they never put into that file before that went into effect?
He said thousands.
And can you tell us what was in these documents that were destroyed?
He says, I don't know, because I didn't know the documents by memory. I'm trying to remember what they were, but I know they were very top secret information having to do with the situation we find ourselves in now. And I wish I could remember, but I don't remember a lot of things. I'm sorry, due to the brain damage.
Do you think in 6 years from now, when the Federation comes out, your other self, will those documents be released?
Yes.
Maybe they have copies of it. Because of course there is time travel technology. It's not like you can delete information from history. You can always go back.
It's all been
All right.
documented.
Okay, so moving on here. Here's another good question. If you've been alive in August of 1964 when the USS Maddox was attacked by North Vietnamese ships in the Gulf of Tonkin, what would have been your immediate response? And do you agree that Johnson did the right thing in escalating the American presence in Vietnam, or was he wrong?
Yes, I do agree with his actions, and it's an action that I would have taken myself.
So you think America should have went into Vietnam, which became that huge quagmire?
Yes.
All right. So I guess there was no way to avert that timeline.
No way to avoid it, he says.
Okay, so next question is, if you've been alive in 1968, just finishing your second term as president, what would you have encouraged your brother Robert to run for president?
Yes, I would have. Yes. Robert is a very wonderful, amazing person, and he almost reminds me of myself. And I'm a very deep thinker like Robert. Robert would have been a very good president.
Okay, next question is, can you confirm if Bobby or Robert Kennedy was investigating covert CIA UFO intelligence MJ-12 reports just before he was murdered?
Yes.
And can you confirm if MJ-12 had anything to do with your death?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. So do you know why, can you respond specifically to why MJ-12, I'm assuming we want MJ-12, assuming it was MJ-12, killed him. Why did they want him dead?
Why did they want MGA-12 dead?
No. Why did MJ-12 want Bobby Kennedy dead?
Okay. Gave out too much information.
Right, so that's why they were trying to keep it all under wraps. Okay. Anything else you want to elaborate on that? Or should we move on?
We can move on, he says.
Okay. Next question is, the world might be a very different place if John F. Kennedy had survived the 63 assassination. Stephen King has written an interesting and entertaining novel about the subject. The book 11/22/63 is about a man who goes back in time and kills Oswald before the fatal shot. Of course, we know he was a patsy, but we'll just assume he killed the real killer. King's prediction, however, is that the world went totally out of control because Kennedy lived. I found this curious because certain whistleblowers from the Montauk Project report that if you were not assassinated, then certain elements in the government would not have been able to waken up to the Zionist conspiracy underfoot to take over the government, because you can call it Zionist or you can call it the mafia or whatever, the certain cabal attributes. And they will as a result, certain white knights in the Pentagon, in the different office levels of government, would not have been able to put countermeasures in place. And they claim that the timeline showed that in 1980 there was a nuclear war with the Soviet Union, a nuclear winter, and then an invasion by mantis ant beings, which I know is kind of weird. That's what they're saying. So, can you confirm that this is true in those realities in which you survived?
Yes, it is true.
And that's why the people at Montauk allowed you to go through the assassination.
That's correct. Yes.
And how do you feel about that?
Well, he says I wasn't very happy with it. Again, I think that they could have gone in a better direction in some of these projects to help others, but unfortunately it was led in the wrong hands of the reptilians race and the monarch family.
Okay. All right, so my next question is, can you confirm if I was really friends of your son, John Jr., and that we worked together at I believe it was Lunar Operation Command. We worked together on the moon. I recall memories of that. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Can you confirm if he's still alive?
He says no.
Okay, because he died of a heart attack. Interestingly, you also had heart issues as well. So I want to mention to the audience members a little background information here. John Jr. did not go down in that plane over Long Island. That was actually after Kennedy was assassinated, they put new surrogate children in place of the originals, and they were the originals were given a surrogated family. Carolyn and John, I believe they grew up. I don't remember what he said he grew up, but they're living in Sacramento. Caroline is still alive, but can you confirm that that actually did take place?
Yes.
And what does it mean to be declared zero?
Declared zero?
Correct. DZ.
He said, well, I was declared zero because that was a clearance, security clearance.
Right, because John Jr. kept talking about being declared zero.
Yeah, it's a security clearance.
All right. Okay.
Top secret security clearance.
Yeah, so I recall a mission that we did together into a parallel Earth, which the one I talked about earlier, where there was a nuclear winter, and our role was to recover photos of his life if Kennedy did not get assassinated, because he wanted to know what his childhood would have been like if he would have been allowed to live in the prestige of Kennedy royalty. So we were able to recover a few of those photographs, but so that's not really a question to you, but that's just something I want to mention. Do you have anything you would like to comment about that? About John Jr. or the secret space program or the moon base?
He says, when I saw the project, I was not surprised, but I felt like passing out because I was like, wow. He says, if I could only think about how I could have changed everything, we wouldn't see all this stuff being created. Because my plan and my idea with the Dracos and reptilians was a much better idea, that we can create one world unite with the human race. But unfortunately, when politics got involved and too many people got their hands on the cookie jar, things got way out of hand. And now you're starting to see the results of that in science, time travel, and all these different types of bases that we should not be paying on with our American tax dollars.
Okay, so the last question on my list is, are you the reincarnation of Abraham Lincoln?
Yes, I am.
All right, and how do you feel about having to go through your second presidency being assassinated? I guess you kind of already
As I
answered that,
say,
but
I was in a time loop, and the time loops have to do with all the different assassinations that keep repeating itself, and all the cloning that is going on is very, very interesting how they have cloned me multiple times as Abraham Lincoln.
right. What would a timeline been like if Abraham Lincoln was not assassinated? Do you have any information on that?
You would see lots of changes. And it would not be gold that backs up our dollar. It would not be what you see now with Bitcoin. It would be a world where everyone would have reunited, and we would have a better government system where we are not separated from each other, and the countries would not be divided. They would all be one country, and we would all reunite with these types of different alien races. It would have been very global, and it would be a blessing.
Yeah. Of course, let's go back to Montauk. Some of the people at Montauk were conducting experiments on the timeline where they could actually go back in time and change things. So the question is, why did they allow why did they allow him to be killed? Now you mentioned this very positive timeline. What went wrong in that timeline that Abraham Lincoln was not assassinated in? Do you have any information on that?
What went wrong and why did it happen?
Yeah, so I'm assuming something must have went wrong for them not to allow that to take place.
He said what went wrong was the reptilians. They put a
Okay,
stop to it.
okay. Yeah, because I was getting this impression in my head. Maybe that's the parallel reality where the Nazis won World War II. Because the United States would have not really gotten involved into the war and not really helped Europe out because they were on a more positive timeline.
He says that's a fair statement.
And then eventually the Nazis come World War II, we weren't prepared and they just took us over.
He said that's a fair statement, yes.
Huh.
He said I would agree.
All right, but we're only making a lot of assumptions here since we're not sitting in front of the computers at Montauk to analyze the timeline. We can only guess. But okay, so that's all my questions. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you have the floor. If you'd like to share anything else that we have not discussed to the audience members, go ahead.
He says thank you, James, and thank you, Adrian, for allowing me to come on the show. And I hope that everyone will have questions for me because there's a lot of things I would like to say. And I just also would like to say that I am very happy that to see America grow and that we are the land of freedom and we will be once reunited. And I will be back in 6 years from now. So please expect me and we will make the changes, and by then I hope that our new president will do what's right for the country and make the best decisions. Sometimes these decisions can be very hard. As I said, it is not easy to become the chief of staff, but we must all pull together and help our great president to make our country great again. and I would just like to share that with everybody. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. If not, I would like to say goodbye and leave you with a blessing and a prayer. And I would also like to let everyone know that I am there with any concerns or questions that you may have for me, to the best of my ability, what I can remember and what I can do. There are times where I cannot speak and times that I cannot say, because due to the damage of what has happened to me and others and my family, and I watch out for them every day, and I love them, and I'm always there for our new president to make the best decisions for our country. God bless America, and God bless Donald Trump.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
All right, so I guess we're going to go ahead and conclude this. Adrian, did you want to add anything to this conversation at this time?
Yeah, I just like to thank everybody for being our listeners today, and having James allow me to come on the show. And I always look forward to going on James Rink shows and Peter the Insider. And I also think it's an honor to actually be able to channel John F. Kennedy and to get as much information as we can. Again, I would like to mention about my software. If anybody would like to know more about their Milab experiments or abductions, feel free to check out my website again. And James will repeat my website. And I'm also going to be running some specials on some of my new software, which goes a little bit more in depth. And it's going to really, I feel it's going to really start to help people. And I would like to include the GONS with what James is making, also the Elixir, and letting people know that James's NeoCute is outstanding. It's wonderful. It's great. And it's always changed my life. And it's an awesome unit. And I feel that people should purchase one of those as well, because that's very important. And again, anybody who would like to have a reading with me, feel free to contact me at any time. I'd like to, morning, noon, and night, whenever it takes. I love channeling. I think it's great. I'm hoping that we can really get some deep information with John F. Kennedy and do a documentary, and also with working with our great president, and also help with Michael Jackson to heal the world. So there you go. I just wanted to mention it with everybody. So go ahead and check out my website.
Okay, so everybody please visit forcevspower.com to learn more about Adrian's website. And also be sure to visit supersoldiertalk.com to see not only this video, but there'll be other videos as well associated with the Super Soldier Milab phenomenon. Now, this topic was a little bit off in a different direction, but we did explore some of the secret space program. And I also want to mention, be sure to subscribe. So the more you subscribe, the more I know that these videos are actually, people are actually listening to them. So it gives me an incentive to continue doing it.
Yes,
and also, please also visit Neological Tech to support the work I do. So yeah, the cubes are going to be in production soon. Just bear with me, everybody that's purchased one. Please be patient. You'll get it soon enough. And I want to mention lastly, because we are near the holidays, Merry Christmas. So we're now allowed to say, we're now allowed to say Merry Christmas thanks to Donald Trump. So that's, anyhow, we'll go ahead and say Happy Holidays too for all those who are not of that religion. Once again, everybody, thank you for listening in, and of course, thank you, Adrian, for joining us.
Okay,
and thank you, thank you, JFK.
And God bless America, everybody.
Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Please consider supporting Super Soldier Talk by purchasing your own Neo Meditation device. Your Neo Meditation device will help you reduce stress, integrate trauma, enhance intuition, enhance clairvoyance, and enhance creativity. Get yours now at www.neologicaltech.com.